Hi, my name is Oluwole Godwin. Welcome to MOG Economics. Today we shall be talking on monopoly. This a continuation of our classes on market structures. We've treated the privately competitive market, and now we are on monopoly, the other extreme of the market structure. A monopoly is a market structure with only one seller. It's as simple as that. When there is a market with only one seller, we have a monopoly, and the only firm that operates in a monopoly is called a monopolist. The market demand curve is the monopoly's demand curve too, because there is only a single seller in this particular market structure. The demand curve facing the entire market is simply the demand curve that is facing this single seller. Now we have features of a monopoly, and they include there is only one seller. Of course, that is what makes it a monopoly in the first place. The firm is a price maker, that is, has market power. When we're talking about the privately competitive markets, where we discover that privately competitive firms are price takers. They take the prices from the industry, from the intersection of the market forces, the demand and the supply curve. But in this particular case, we have this firm being its own boss. It sets the price that it wants to sell its produce, and that is simply because it has market power. So now, what is market power? Market power is simply the ability of a firm or a producer to influence prices almost at will. So that's just what market power is. A producer might decide to sell his commodity at this price, and may decide to sell it at this other price tomorrow. So that is market power. So if there is a producer that can do that on its own, it simply means that the producer has market power. Third, the firm can influence price or quantity, but not both at the same time, because it faces a downward sloping demand curve, and as such, profits are not unlimited. So now let's take the points one after the other. We have the firm can influence price or quantity, but not both at the same time. So why is that? Why is it that the firm can influence price and the firm may choose to influence quantity, but not both at the same time? That is simply because when we check the industry demand, which happens to be the market demand curve, it is actually downward sloping. And this simply means that, well, a monopolist might decide to set his price at a very high price, okay, but then it can't actually set prices that are just extremely high. Okay, for example, let's say we have a particular seller that happens to be the only seller in a. Okay, let's say we have Dangote in Nigeria producing cement. Let's assume that Dangote is the only producer of cement. He could decide to charge any price according to monopoly theory, but then do you think he can actually decide to charge any price? No. Okay, if Dangote is charging like 2,500 naira for its cement product, why is he not charging 25,000 naira for one bag? Why? And why is he not charging at least 30,000 naira for one bag? It's not going to do that because the demand curve facing Dangote is downward sloping. So there is a certain price, there is a certain limit that the price can reach, and people won't buy anymore. Okay, and when the price is at the bottom over here, when the price is really low, Dangote is going to discover that he can sell a lot of his outputs at this particular price. If he chooses to set the price this high, P2, he then discovers that there's going to be a fall in quantity. So now assume that you are a buyer of Dangote's cement in Nigeria. Now, Dangote, let's assume that Dangote is a monopolist. He is the only one that sells cement. Do you think that if Dangote decides to charge 25,000 naira per bag of cement, that you are still going to buy cement? Okay, let's say you are even wealthy. Now, let's talk about 50,000 naira for one bag. Let's say 500,000 naira for one bag. Do you think you are still going to buy it? No, because there's going to get to there will be a limit where you would consider the purchase of a bag of cement for the price it is going, okay, in the market as unreasonably high, and because of that, you may just decide not to build houses, not to engage in buildings, or you may decide to use substitute. You may decide to just maybe try to see how you can deal with clay and so on and so forth. So that is exactly what happened under a monopoly. A monopolist can charge any price for its products, but then it can't really charge any price. So it seems like I'm contradicting myself, but then that is the essence of the whole thing. It could decide to charge a very high price, which it usually does, but then it can't. A monopolist cannot charge a very high price. So there's a limit to the kind of price that it could charge. Okay, simply because people are not going to buy. It's as simple as that, and that is reinforcing the fact that the market demand curve is downward sloping. And let me remind you again that the market demand curve is simply the monopolies demand curve, because this monopolies is the only seller in this particular market. So he has all of the demand curve to himself. He has every buyer is looking up to him. So that is what we mean by saying that he has only demand curve to himself. Okay, okay, because it faces a downward sloping demand curve, and as such, profits are not unlimited. So what do we mean by saying profits are not unlimited? Simply because of the fact that the demand curve is downward sloping, and then monopolies cannot charge any kind of price so that people don't run away. That simply means his profit is to a reasonable extent under control. Simply, Dangote might decide, in a hypothetical example, Dangote might decide to charge. Dangote, I think right now he's charging around 2,500 naira for a bag of cement or so. Dangote cannot charge 25,000 naira. If he charges 25,000, of course, he's going to make a lot of profit at that price. But then people are not going to buy. A lot of people are not going to buy, and that simply means Dangote's profits cannot exceed a certain threshold. So his profits are not infinite. So that is what we mean here. His profits are not unlimited. Now, number 4, there is a barrier to entry and exit. That's part of what makes a monopoly what it is. Okay, for you to have just one seller in a particular market simply means there is no one else in the market, and since monopoly is characterized by a single seller, what is stopping other firms from entering is simply the barriers to entry. So that is just what happens. So there is barriers to entry. No one else can come in, and we are going to check why that is the case as time goes on. Now, goods sold have no close substitutes. Now, in a hypothetical example, we are still considering the case of Dangote. If Dangote is the only producer of cement, that simply means that there is not going to be other product that is close to a cement. There might be other things that could be used for building, but then they are not going to be close to cement. So you won't be able to substitute Dangote cement for something else, okay, at a very quick rate, because they are not going to be as good, or they are not going to be of the same quality or composition as the cement that Dangote is selling in our hypothetical example. So that's what we mean by saying there is no close substitute. Now let me note something here, that there's a difference between perfect substitute and then close substitute. When we're talking about perfect substitute, we are talking about goods that can be exchanged, two goods or two or more goods two goods that perform the same function. Okay, they perform the same function, so they have the same composition. They have everything is similar. So you could just decide to, okay, I don't want to use this product, so let me use this product, because they are just perfect. Now, when we're talking about close substitute, we are talking about two or more goods that perform similar functions to a very large extent, but then they are not the same. So there's a difference between being similar and not the same. Okay, so we have two goods that are very, very similar in what they do, but they are not the same. So a monopolist doesn't have that kind of substitute. So if it doesn't have close substitute, definitely doesn't have perfect substitute. Then number 5, okay, number 6, a monopolist does not have a supply curve. I'm going to get to that point in a minute. Okay, but I'm going to address this fully, okay, as we move on. But let's just notice right now that a monopolist does not have a supply curve. Now we have these reasons why a monopoly may arise. So what are the reasons why a monopoly may arise? Number 1, access to or ownership of a key resource. Now, if there is a certain seller in an industry that has the ownership or has a direct access to a key resource in that particular industry, it is very likely that that is going to be the only firm in that industry. Now, for instance, let's consider 3 producers, 3 guys. Okay, they want to start up a YouTube channel for economic students. Okay, fine. There is only one of these producers that has access to the right textbooks, that have access to the textbooks that should be used in teaching the course, okay, from on that YouTube channel. Now, since that is the case, and other potential producers of services of the economics service, teaching of economics service on YouTube channel do not have access to textbooks or the right textbooks that are going to be used for their classes. So that simply means that it is going to be very difficult or impossible for them to enter into the market, and then it leaves the only producer or the only guy that has access to the right textbooks or that has access to economics textbooks in the market. So because of that, because he has access to something that is very key to that industry, which is textbook. Okay, that simply means that the owner of the textbook is simply going to be the only producer of economics teaching on YouTube channel. So we then have just one guy, okay, on a YouTube channel doing all of the teaching, and then we have other potential guys not coming to the market because they do not have what it takes. They do not have one of the most important things that it takes to cope in that particular industry. So that is what we mean by saying ownership or access to a key resource. So as long as the potential competitors do not have access to that same resource, and the resource is strategic or very important, we are not going to have many sellers in that particular industry. So if it's only one producer that has access to that key resource, then we have that producer alone in the market. So that is the reason why a monopoly may arise. Now another reason is government support through politics, patents, and copyright. All right. We have, for example, let me come out a Dangote example. Let me come out a Dangote case. There are times in Nigeria where Nigerians just feel that some policies of the government is in support of Dangote. Well, that may be the case and that may not be the case, but let's assume that may be the case. Now, if that is the case, that simply means if the government decides to implement a policy that favors Dangote cement factory, that is simply saying that other competitors or other potential competitors are at risk. Okay, so if the government is supporting Dangote for one reason or the other and not supporting others, it simply means that it is very, very likely for only Dangote to be producing cement as long as Nigeria is concerned. So that is what we mean by government support through politics. Now, the other thing is through patents. So let's imagine there's a pharmaceutical industry that's embarked on this big research and then discover a vaccine for coronavirus. Of course, we have coronavirus right now in 2020. Okay, now what happens? The government decides to, the company vies for a patent. Okay, and what does a patent do? A patent is, a patent simply gives support, okay, to an economic support to the firm that discovered a particular thing for a period of time. Okay, so if you have this pharmaceutical industry that just developed the vaccine for COVID-19, and then it goes through all of the test procedures and it is found out to be effective, the government might issue a patent to this pharmaceutical industry. The patent could be for 20 years, and what it does is that it gives that producer the sole right to produce that vaccine. So that simply means that other producers are not permitted by law to produce that vaccine. If they do, well, they are going to face the government right. So that is what we're trying to say. So if that is the case, then of course the government gives this pharmaceutical industry the patents, okay, that the industry vied for. So that simply means that it is only that firm that will be able to produce vaccines for 10, 20 years as the case may be. So for that time being, this firm is going to be a monopoly since it is the only firm that is supplying the vaccine to the market. So that is simply what we mean. Then the same goes for copyright. Copyright is for writers. So we have a writer that wrote a novel. Okay, maybe Chimamanda Adichie wrote a novel, a very fine novel that everyone likes, and then she decides to file for copyright. So once it is granted onto her, that simply means that the book cannot be printed, cannot be reprinted by another producer. So it is only through Chimamanda Adichie that the public will be able to get to the book. So as long as that is the case, so for the time being that the copyright is going to be in existence, it simply means it is only Chimamanda Adichie that is going to be producing the book solely to the market. So, and that makes her a monopolist for that time being. Now, number 3, the production process. Now, a production process could also make a firm a monopolist or something extremely close to being a monopolist. Now, when we're talking about the production process, we are simply saying that the more a producer produces, the less the average cost becomes. Okay, so we have, there are firms around, maybe Facebook, okay, the additional cost, that is the marginal cost of supplying the service of Facebook to other consumers is small compared to what has been incurred initially. Now, in this particular case, we are going to be having a kind of monopoly that we develop, which is called a natural monopoly. A natural monopoly. Now, what's a natural monopoly, or who is a natural monopolist? A natural monopolist is simply a producer who experiences decreasing average cost as he or she keeps on producing. So he or she increases production and average cost falls. Now, I have an example here, which is that of the restaurant. Now, this restaurant Okay, we have this is the Q column, this is the total cost column, the marginal cost column, and then the average cost column. Okay, when nothing was being produced, we have 0, and then the total cost, because fixed cost cannot be 0 even when output is 0. Okay, so we have total cost being 20. Now marginal cost, which simply measures the change in total cost divided by the change in the input used, is dashed at this point because we are just talking about the first one. And then the average cost is simply total cost divided by quantity. Now total cost divided by this, okay, doesn't make sense. Now this restaurant also from 0 then starts to produce for 10 customers. Okay, starts to produce food for 10 customers. Now that costs them 50. Now all values are in thousands of naira. So that costs them 50,000 naira. So that means they are incurring variable cost now since the fixed cost, okay, which happens to be equal to the total cost at point 0 was 20,000 here. So 20,000 plus 30,000 equals 50,000. That means they're incurring a variable cost of 30,000 naira. All of that embedded in this total cost 50,000 naira, and then the marginal cost here is going to be we expect it to be 3,000. All right, since all values are in thousand, and then the average cost is simply 50 divided by 10, which is 5. Now, this restaurant decides to, okay, let's expand our business to 15 customers now. So let's have 5, let's produce for 5 more customers. So from 10, they move to 15. All right. Now, it costs them 70,000 naira to produce for 15 customers. And now, that simply means that what's the marginal cost? The marginal cost is simply what I've done here. So 70 minus 50 divided by 15 minus 10. Okay, so this is going to 30 minus 30 divided by 8 is 4, and that 4 simply means 4,000. So it costs them 4,000 naira on average to produce for 5 more persons. Now, what is the average cost? The average cost is simply 70,000 naira divided by 50, which is 4.67. Now, what is that telling? That is telling us that although it is costing more, okay, from 10 customers to 15 customers, it costs more for the restaurants, okay, because we are moving from 3,000 to 4,000 naira to produce for these additional customers. But then, when we talk about the average cost is actually falling because the average cost is it was 5 here, now it is 4.67 here. So, as far as this restaurant is concerned, the additional cost of extending their service to 5 more customers, which is 15 minus 10, is not enough to increase the average cost, simply because the average cost is decreasing 4.67. So we have all of the calculations here. This is the first average cost as 0.10, which is 50 divided by 10. Okay, and then we have 5,000 naira since all values are in thousands. Then here we have 70 divided by 15, and that is 4.67. Okay, which is 4,670 naira. So that is what it means. So it's fine that it costs more for them to produce for more customers, but then by the time the additional cost is spread on all of the customers, we said that the average cost is falling. So if there is a producer like this, okay, we call this kind of producer a natural monopoly, because this producer is going to make it very, very difficult for new firms to come into this market. Simply because if new firms are to come into the market, they are going to be incurring fixed costs and all of those costs and variable costs and all of that. And then their average cost is very, very likely to be above what is being charged by this restaurant. So imagine the restaurant producing more and the average cost is falling. Now, I know that average cost is going to reflect in the price that is going to be charged. Now, if new firms enter this market and then discover that their average cost is really higher or a little bit higher than the firm that's already existing in the market, of course, we expect that the price of their commodity is going to be high because every firm wants to maximize profit. Now, if average cost is already high, we expect that the price that will be charged would even be higher or at least equal to the average cost. But then there is this existing firm in the industry that keeps producing and then the average cost keeps falling. And now, because of that, these restaurants could decide to charge a price that is really low than what the competitors would be able to bear. Okay, and because of that, other competitors would not be able to enter into this industry, and then it is very, very likely that it is only this restaurant that is going to remain in the market. So, and that makes this restaurant a monopoly. Now, reasons why a monopoly may arise. So let's refresh: access or ownership of a key resource, government support through politics, patents, and copyright. Then number 3, the production process. We have this table that shows the quantity, the price, the total revenue, the average revenue, and the marginal revenue of the particular monopolist. Now, Q ranges from 0 to 7. Then this is the price when quantity was 0, 110, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, and then 40. Now total revenue at this price is 0. Total revenue when the total revenue when the quantity was 1 is 100. When the quantity became to 90 times 2 is 180, 80 times 3 is 240, and so on and so forth. Now average revenue is simply total revenue divided by the quantity, which is for this case we have dash. Then we have total revenue divided by the quantity 100. Total revenue divided by the quantity 2, 90. Total revenue divided by 3, 80, and so on and so forth. Whereas the marginal revenue measures the change in total revenue as a result of the production of one more unit of output. So for the first one we have dash, and then for this we have total revenue simply 100 minus 0, which is 100, divided by 1 minus 0, and that gives us 100 again. Then total revenue at point 2 is simply 180 minus 100, which is 80, divided by 2 minus 1, which is 1. So 80 divided by 1 is 80. Then we have 240 divided by 240 minus 180, which is 60, divided by 3 minus 2, which is divided by 1 as 60, and so on and so forth. So we have this graph here for the total revenue from 0 to 280. So we discovered that the total revenue is upward sloping, okay, at the beginning. Then it was steep initially, then becomes more gentle, then gets to the maximum point. Now the maximum point is simply at quantity 4 and 5. Okay, here we have not 4 and 5, we have quantity 5 and 6 rather, so we have 300, 300. So immediately, and I want you to know something, that at the maximum, okay, which is simply as quantity 6 here. Now of course we have 300 at 5 and 6, but then we expect that after 300 has been reached here, you should have a greater value. Okay, and since we are not having a greater value, so we just assume that, okay, so the maximum 300 is at point 6. And at that point, we discover that the marginal revenue is going to be 0. Okay, simply because the addition to total revenue at that point is 0, and that's why we have 300, 300 again. So immediately the marginal revenue becomes 0. If there is a production of one more unit of output again, we discover that is the 7th unit of output, total revenue begins to fall. And by the time we trace that down, okay, that is simply where the marginal revenue is negative, because this is the marginal revenue. So now the marginal revenue is negative. So another relationship I want us to understand from this is that the AR curve and the MR curve, they begin from the same point as far as the monopolies is concerned. So this is what we have for the monopolies. Alright, so that said, so this is what we typically have for a monopolist in theory. Okay, so we have this happens to be, okay, before coming here, let me also note something here, that if we decide to calculate the slope of the AR curve and the AR and the MR curve at the same point, let's say from 80 to 60, we calculate the slope on the MR curve, and then from the same 80 to 60, calculate the slope on the AR curve. We discover that the MR curve is twice steeper than the AR curve. That is, the MR curve is double. The MR curve is half of the slope of the AR curve. That is, AR curve is more elastic or more flat than the MR curve. Okay, so MR curve is simply half the slope of the AR curve. So if you might just do that calculation on your own and then see what the answer is going to be. So the answer here, the slope here is going to be twice what the slope is here. Now let's come to this. This is what we have typically for a monopolist. And then we have the average revenue curve downward sloping, which represents the demand curve. Then we have the marginal revenue curve as well from here. So we have this, we can understand this easily. Then we assume that the average total cost curve is here. Of course, it could be anywhere, it could be above, it could be under it. Alright, and then the producer decides how much to produce. Okay, where is MC curve intersect the MR curve? Now this is the MR curve, and then this is the MC curve. So this producer at this intersection, okay, the producer determines the quantity to be produced, and then when we trace this here, so this is going to give us the average cost, and then we'll just trace it up to the demand curve. We'll be having the price. Alright, so all of this represents, simply because profit is greater, price greater than the average cost, all of this represents profit. Okay, we are going to get into this in one of our videos soon, so for you to understand this properly. So I've just done this here in order to make us understand what typically occurs in a under a monopoly, how the curve simply work. AR is downward sloping, MR is inside, then we have the average total cost, then the marginal cost cutting the average total cost from beneath. It's not always like that, but in this case, let's just leave it that way. Now, the other time I was asking us to, I was telling us that the monopolies does not have a supply curve. Okay, and I told us that I promised them that we're going to get to it in a bit. So this is, we have two curves here, and then we have a question, why a monopolist does not have a supply curve. Now, a supply curve is simply a single curve that tells the price of a commodity as well as the quantity produced. All right. So we have a supply curve being something like this. Okay. On this axis we have the price, and on this axis we have the quantity. But then, by the time we look at the monopolies, a monopoly does not have something like that. Simply because what determines the quantity is simply the intersection of the MR and the MC. It is not a single curve. Now you have MR, MC. This determines quantity. Then you have another curve entirely, which determines the price, which is the demand curve. So there is no single curve that combines price and quantity together, and for that reason, there is no supply curve. But let me explain it in a better way. Okay. A monopoly does not have a supply curve because the decision of what to supply into the market, it will always lie on the demand curve. Okay, we always relate to the demand curve. Now look at what we did here. So after intersecting marginal cost and after the intersection of marginal cost and marginal revenue, we then observe that the price that the commodity is going to be sold at is discovered from the demand curve. All right. So every decision that this monopolist continues to make is going to be towards the demand curve. Now I'm going to show you something else that tells us that the price of a commodity does not tell what the quantity of the commodity is going to be, and the quantity of the commodity under a monopoly does not tell us what the price is going to be. Now look at this particular curve. So we have two demand curves, that is two average revenue curves, as well as their marginal revenue curves. Now this represents the first average revenue curve, that is the first demand curve, which is downward sloping. Then we have its marginal revenue, okay, which is this MR1. Then we have the second demand curve, which is AR2, and then its own marginal revenue, which is MR2. Now, what do we observe from this particular graph? The same quantity is sold, but on different demand curves. Okay, and because of that, different prices are being charged for the same quantity. Now look at it. Marginal cost intersects the marginal revenue curves, okay, the two curves, at the same point. But then, if the producer is operating on this demand curve, that is AR2, okay, he will be charging this price P2. And if the producer is operating on this demand curve, the AR1, he will be charging this price P1. So that is to tell us that, okay, fine, we know the quantity, but we can't tell what the price is. We can't tell the prices because everything depends on the type of demand curve that the monopolist is facing. So that is to tell us that supply curve, a monopolist does not have a supply curve. All right, what he only does is to equate his marginal cost to his marginal revenue, determine the quantity that he's going to sell, and then look at the maximum price he is going to charge on the demand curve, and then sets the price. Because of that, remember that the monopolist is a price maker. It doesn't take price as just like the powerhouse competitor does. All right, so he makes his own price based on the demand curve that is facing him. All right, so he doesn't have a set price by which a set quantity is to be sold. All right, then let's look at this other case. We have this other case where a monopolist charges the same price for its commodity, but then based on the demand curve that he has, he is supplying different quantities based on those demand curves. Based on the demand curves. Now look at it. This is the first demand curve, which is the AR1, and then the second demand curve, which is the AR2, with their respective marginal revenue curves. Now the marginal revenue curve is intersecting the marginal cost curve at this point. All right, and then here we trace this to the demand curve and set this price P1. Okay, then the monopolist faces another type of demand curve. Okay, in the same market. All right, then this is what we have. We have the marginal cost curve now intersecting the marginal revenue curve at a lower value. Okay, then we trace it up. Okay, and then we observe that we have the same price as before. Now we have the same price as before, but then on different demand curves, and then even at this same price, this monopolist is producing different quantities. So this is to further restate the fact that a monopolist does not have a supply curve. So it doesn't have that definite curve for which if you know the price, you're going to know the quantity. No. Okay. All it just does is to equate marginal cost and marginal revenue, and then find what maximum price is suitable on his demand curve. It's as simple as that. All right. So and because of these reasons, a monopolist doesn't have a supply curve. It doesn't have something that looks like it at all. So We've come to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to leave them in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please share and click on the like button. You may also click on the subscribe button in order to see more of our videos. Thank you very much once again, and see you next time.